All right, you guys, welcome back. We've got a good one today. I didn't think I was gonna drive another ND MX-5 ever again. I didn't really want to. Well, I always want to drive an MX-5, but not unless there were important changes. And behind me is the 2024 ND3 MX-5, and there are a bunch of important changes. My question is though, are these changes pushing the MX-5 in the right direction? Now, a few months ago, 4 months ago, I drove the ND2 MX-5, the last year of that, the 2023 model, and I had some questions and kind of concerns of what the next generation MX-5 was gonna look like. And at the time, I didn't feel like a very accurate consensus of what you guys were thinking or worried about when it comes to the next generation MX-5. Since that video has gone out, I have a much better idea of what you guys think, and some of you guys chimed in on that video. So Kev27RS said, might as well stop the MX-5 model name if they plan on going EV. Well, people would still buy the older models and not even care about the new EV model. Andrew says full EV means no manual, so yes, I'll keep my 89. There are a bunch of people like that who bought the NAs and MBs and are just kind of keeping their eye on the ND and the next generation to see what Mazda does with it before really dedicating themselves to it. A cost to you said, I got a 2023 because I wanted something before this platform dies, or goes EV to support a simple and lightweight manual sports car. Now, as I mentioned last time, Mazda has not confirmed that there will be a manual transmission in the next generation MX-5. They've only confirmed that it will be, or they will try to stay as true as possible to a lightweight two-seater sports car. And to sum it all up, I think John Racy said it best. So I asked, so are we all jumping off the bandwagon if they go EV? And John said, not necessarily. Miata is an institution. Interesting way to put it. However, if done right, I think there's the potential for an EV Miata to be something special. It wouldn't be easy. It would take a totally different attitude to EV design than any manufacturer has taken yet. If anyone could do it, it'd be Mazda. When they're making weird things work is when Mazda is at its best. I agree with most of that statement. Now, this was 4 months ago. I'm trying to think. I don't believe the Ioniq 5N was fully launched at the time, and we know that integrates the fake gearing and sounds to kind of make the EV experience a little bit more true to an internal combustion feeling with the sensory inputs of a gear change. And not to compare an MX-5 to a much heavier Ioniq 5N dedicated EV, but after seeing those fake gears and all those sounds come into the Ioniq, I think that's something that Mazda could do with the MX-5 if it were to be, God forbid, an all-electric vehicle, to maybe carry over some of the MX-5 owners, the current MX-5 owners, to the new car. Another thing we talked about was, of course, the possibility of a hybrid, but as one of those comments stated, if it's not a manual, then a lot of people will just abandon ship on the MX-5, and really the brand name for them will be dead. That's myself included. I think if the next generation doesn't have a manual, it's dead to me, but we're getting ahead of ourselves. We're here right now with the 2024 model, the ND3 behind us. Let's go see if the changes they've made have given us hope for the next generation. Let's go. So the engine, of course, still unchanged here. Skyactiv 2-liter inline-4, 181 horsepower, 151 pound-feet of torque. Peak torque is 4,000 RPM. I'm gonna get a criticism that I hear a lot out of the way right now, and maybe I said it last video, maybe I didn't, but I've heard people say this car is underpowered. I wholeheartedly disagree. For the weight, for the size, trust me, if you drive the car, it's plenty enough power to have fun and to feel the dynamics of the car, and that's what the MX-5 is all about. So, first things first, the most important change that they've made is a new, what Mazda calls an asymmetric clutch-type differential in the rear. So it basically has enabled the torque ramp-ups, or I guess the locking ramp-up curves on decel and acceleration to be quite different from each other. So effectively how Mazda has tuned this is upon deceleration, it'll have a more aggressive lockup, which will prevent the tail end from kind of kicking out, or if you guys wanted lift off oversteer, it may be a little bit tougher to initiate that, and then upon exit it will lock up a little bit less aggressively, and this is kind of in most scenarios. The differential goes hand in hand with the next change, which is the steering. So of course the ND has electric power steering, but the steering rack is new. It has been updated as well. The programming has been updated here so that on center, it's a little bit more comfortable and forgiving on the highway. There's less friction overall, and then when you get into a corner and you load it up, it becomes more weighted and still has that very precise feel to it. I mean, it's the same old MX-5 underneath. It loves to rev out. It loves to shift. The shifter is fantastic. The clutch feels great. The pedal placement is perfect. That's the only way I could describe it. That's the only word I could use to describe it. Heel towing is so much fun. Steering still very sharp. Still very sharp. If you're worried that the on-center adjustments have made it lazy, it's not the case. It just provides a little bit more comfort on the freeway. 5 years ago, about 5 or 6 years ago when I first drove the ND MX-5, I noticed it was twitchy coming out of corners. I turned traction control off and I thought initially that, hey, it's an MX-5. I hadn't really driven many before, that I should be able to just kind of play with the rear end and dial in a little bit of counter steer, just a little bit of a flick or a power slide on command. I found it to be incredibly twitchy and kind of unpredictable and unsettling, combined with the body roll in the corners, which of course the body roll is what makes the MX-5 kind of an MX-5 at lower speeds. It makes it fun and accessible, but it's dialed a lot of that unpredictable kind of nature of it out in combination with the diff. Those are by far the two biggest changes here. And are the differences subtle? Yeah, I mean, if I drove these cars back to back, I would probably have more nuanced things to say. As you guys can see, the one I'm driving today is the RF model, retractable hardtop. It is the RF GT as well. So it has what the GSP in Canada has, which is the Bilstein suspension, Bilstein dampers, and then of course the front strut tower brace, the leather seats. You are able to also spec a Napa leather tan seats. It does away with what you could add with the Sport Pack, which would be the Recaro seats and the Brembo brakes. This does not have that. It is more of a Grand Touring package. When combined with the RF, is a great daily. This is a car that you could have as your one car solution all year round if you're not a big person. The interior consistencies with the other ND Miatas, of course, ND MX-5s, I should say. It's very small in here. If the hardtop was folded up, I'm 5'9". If I was 5'10" and I put on a hat, my head would be rubbing the top of the car. And in the passenger seat, there's no way, if you're 6 foot, you're having a good time as a passenger in this car. And I mean, even as a driver, I don't know if you could drive this car as a 6 foot human being, but you're more than welcome to try. I don't know if I would want to take this on a crazy long road trip, but absolutely, as a daily and as a kind of one-day road trip thing, yeah. Okay, so what other changes have they made? Well, here on the interior, the big one is the screen. They've gone from the old 7-inch up to an 8.8-inch screen. It is not touchscreen most of the time. If you do opt for the GT model, you get wireless Android Auto and Apple CarPlay, which is touchscreen. So it's not touchscreen in Mazda's interface, but then if you go into Android Auto, it becomes touchscreen, but there's a catch. If you're driving, it's not touchscreen. I found this strange because presumably this is to reduce distracted driving, of course. So you have to use this knob down here in the center console to move around the screen in Android Auto or otherwise when you're moving, right? Of course, and then you can only use it as a touchscreen when you're stopped. But the thing is, if I'm touching it, the screen's close enough where the distance from the screen to the steering wheel and this knob to the steering wheel is the same distance. So I'm doing the same thing. My eyes are still looking at the screen, which provides, yeah, a little bit of distraction. That's unavoidable. But there's no change in between me touching the screen in distance down to the knob here. So I don't know, it's a bit of a safety thing. That to me is a little bit of a strange decision. Maybe there's someone at Mazda who can enlighten me on exactly why that decision was made, but the tack is changed slightly. It is still an analog tack, however, it has a little bit less depth to it, and it does look a little bit more digital, but it is still analog. The needle's analog, same with the speedometer, looks great. But that's enough with the interior. What other changes are there? Okay, so exterior changes. What are you gonna notice first? Well, this color I like much better than the brown one I drove earlier. It has a name, but I'm just gonna call it the Mud Brown MX-5. This one's machine gray, metallic, much better in my opinion. LED taillights, that's the first thing you'll probably notice if you see one of these in front of you. Really cool design. Has a bit of a futuristic kind of look. It's got a bit of depth to it, really like that. Second thing you might notice, these wheels. So these are on the GT model, an upgrade from the base model wheels, 17-inch machined aluminum wheels. Lots of different opinions about these wheels online. First impressions, I don't like them as much as the dark kind of gunmetal 17s that were on the 2023 RF I drove. I like those a lot better, and definitely the BBS wheels if you like that kind of track look. I did see a comment, somebody online said, you know, was asking for your opinion on these wheels, and someone said, well, it looks like Mazda's just trying to get more of you guys to spec the BBS wheels. I thought that was kind of funny, but let me know what you guys think about those wheels. And then up front here, to go with the LED taillights, LED headlights, love the look here. So what they've done is they've taken the daytime running lights from down here in these brake vents here, up here, and there's no longer amber in the corner there, it's just LED. Looks a little bit more aggressive. And of course down here, because this is a GT model, if you guys can see it, we do have radar cruise control up there. But as far as the exterior goes, that's about it. All right, so starting price for the MX-5 in the US for you guys, $29,000. That's $35,000 Canadian. That's standard, what we call here in Canada, the GS soft top, cloth seats, non-heated, base stripper model. You guys get the picture, right? No LSD. You do not, with that model, get the new LSD. And that diff is paired with, what I forgot to mention, a new feature for the 2024 model year, which is this checkered flag traction control button over here, hiding down in the corner here. And that is basically a track-focused traction control setting in between, somewhere in between fully on and fully off. So it should allow a little bit of slip. Of course, we're on the street here, so I can't really test that out for you guys today, but that is not, those two things are not available in the base model. That's where it starts, and then it runs all the way up to the RF. As tested here, the RF GT is $45,000 Canadian or $39,000 USD. So not cheap. What would I do? Okay, I would get a GSP soft top. That gets you the Bilstein dampers, the strut brace, but it doesn't get you the Recaro seats, the BBS wheels, or the Brembo brakes. So if you're not going hard all the time, if you're not tracking the car, or if you enjoy looking at these wheels, I should say, then that's the one you should go with, right? Let me know what you guys think in the comments. I have a feeling because of these changes, now that we know the differential, the steering, all these tactile things that they're focusing on, it gives me a little bit of hope for what the next generation MX-5 could be. A little bit more confidence than I had last video. Despite the comments that you guys left that I read in the beginning of the video, I think some of those fears can disappear. Now, until they confirm the manual transmission, everything is in the air. But hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Subscribe if you haven't already. We'll be back soon.